It's a me, Peach, Princess Peach. Hi everyone, let's start the video.
Dear Nintendo, do you see this thing? This thing that Peach does, this hover in the air thing? You know what I decided to do? I decided to calculate whether or not this is possible. In other words, I made a big mistake. Did you know that skirts were complicated? No, because I do now. I know all about skirts now.
Wait, you do necessarily know all?
Straight, A-line, pleated, knife pleated, fly, sheath, box pleat, 8-panel, 4-panel, asymmetrical, accordion, draped, pencil, empire waist, high-rise, low-rise, micro, mini, above the knee, below the knee, mid-calf, maxi, floor length, circular, 3/4, half and quarter circles, and believe it or not, seriously, that is the summary. That is the overview. That is the beginner's course on skirts. And with just these elements alone mixed and matched, you can make nothing short of 1,092 different, completely unique types of skirts. I am in way over my head.
Wow. Wow, that's a lot of studies.
I am in danger. I mean, I didn't even touch on fabric weights, which can bump this number up to over 10,000. What have I done? My spreadsheet for this episode has gone categorically off the rails, but I think I have finally solved it. How does Peach float? She doesn't! End of story! Or is it?
Huh. She doesn't. End of story. Thank you so much. Or is it?
In order to understand this question more fully, we're going to have to lay out our parameters and the limitations to the question we're asking, because this drop-dead floating thing she does, it is actually impossible, just pure and simple. Without a form of lift, which requires a wing or a jetpack providing rocket-powered thrust, this cannot be done. Technically, it may be possible if she's moving sideways, as illustrated by the real-life powered parachutes, but realistically, this is improbable, and nothing about her shape seems to suggest that she has anything resembling an aerodynamic wing. Instead, we're
Aerodynamic wing.
going to be treating Peach as though she were a normal parachute, as though she were slowing her descent by increasing her drag by the relative amount of time longer it takes her to fall to the ground from floating, as opposed to when she's not floating. In other words, if normally it takes her 1/3 of a second to fall to the ground, but after a full float it takes her 1.3 seconds, we're going to act as though she were slowly descending the entire time.
Well, you must understand that different games, different gravity involved. You know, this Mario, these fictional games, these video games.
As though under the effects of a parachute, not as though she were stopping dead in midair. This is the only way she has a chance, and boy, oh boy, we have got a lot to get through today, so let's just get started!
Let's get started.
I didn't just pull these numbers out of my butt earlier. These are the actual fall times I recorded for Peach in Super Mario Bros. 2. These numbers may vary slightly from game to game in the series, but they don't by much, and 2D games are a lot easier to measure than 3D ones, so this is what I'm going to be using. Falling from the peak height of a full
Pixel measurements.
Standard jump takes Peach 0.333 with a line over it seconds, whereas a full float extends this to 1.3 seconds, an increase in fall time of almost 300%. This is pretty significant, especially if you consider the frankly relatively small fall distance. Using Mario as a relative ruler, knowing his canon height of 1.
Using Mario as ruler. Huh. Always as a ruler. Technically speaking, Wario is not 10 feet tall. Wario is not 10 feet tall, alright? I know it's not your fault, alright? Austin is not my fault. But just
By 5 meters has been pretty consistent across multiple titles. We can extrapolate a few things. One, Peach is taller than Mario by quite a bit. But secondly, and more importantly, Peach jumps a very impressive 2.97 meters high, easily beating out Javier Sotomayor's record high jump of 2.45 meters, a record that has stood for over 25 years. And that's not even counting Peach's super high-powered jump move. Also, using these numbers, we can calculate the gravity in the Mushroom Kingdom. Well, in this game, how many Mario games have I calculated gravity in? It's 26.12 meters per second squared in Super Mario 64, 33 meters per second squared in Super Mario Galaxy, 36.42 meters per second squared in Super Mario World. Man, I should start like a website or something. Anyway, get ready for a whopper because the gravity in Super Mario Bros. 2 puts them all to shame, clocking in at a stupendous 55.22 meters per second squared, over 5 times Earth's gravity. Fun fact, that means that just jumping at this height, Peach would be slamming into the ground at over 17 meters per second, or almost 40 miles per hour, or 63 kilometers per hour for
can you imagine the bone structure would just
you freedom-hating entirety of the rest of the world. If Peach weighs 65 kilos, the average weight at her height, this would mean she'd experience 352 kilos of force on her ankles as she lands, which is probably enough to snap them. I don't know. I really don't have time for a cross-sectional analysis of bone force measurements. Too much to do! Too little time!
But you having said that, right? Note that this is a video game, so maybe their bone structure is different. Maybe their bones is made of different materials. Not calcium, maybe like vibranium bones. You never know.
Okay, so having her weight, her height, her fall time, and the gravity, we have everything we need, right? Just figure out an average fall velocity, plug in some like magical parachute formula, and wham bam, we're all done, right? 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 No, not at all. Not even a little. Not even a tiny bit. Oh God, what have I done to myself? I'm in so much trouble.
Oh my God, that's good.
You see at a glance, the way parachutes work is honestly pretty simple, but in order to understand what's simple and simultaneously what's complicated about them, you have to understand drag and terminal velocity. Anything that's falling through the air experiences what's known as drag. As you fall through the air pulled by gravity, you have to push the air that's below you out of the way. This creates a tiny force on your body, pushing you back up as you fall down. This force, combined with the friction caused by the air as it rolls past your body, is known as drag. Interestingly, the faster you move, the more force drag exerts on your body as the air is being pushed out of the way faster and is also causing more friction as it runs past you. If you're falling from really high up, it's possible that this force, the force caused by drag, can equal the force gravity is exerting on you. By the way, the shorthand word for the force gravity exerts on you is weight, which, if I had more time, I would rant about how using kilogram, a unit of mass, to indicate weight when metric weight is actually newtons, but there is no time today. No time! Eyes on target, Austin. Anyway, if the force caused by drag equals the force caused by gravity, or your weight, you actually cease to accelerate. Your acceleration hits 0. This is what's known as terminal velocity, and it's the speed at which any given body will just stop getting faster if it's falling in an atmosphere. You're still falling, mind you, you're just not getting any faster. Every object in the world has a different exact terminal velocity because while technically you can just be like, well, when force G equals force D, you're good. And like, well, one of these is very easy to calculate, specifically the force of gravity. The other one is a freaking nightmare.
It's like one is easy to make, one is wow, one is hard to make.
Let's just compare, shall we? For force of gravity, we get a simple mass times acceleration, in this case 65 kilos times 53.2 meters per second squared, which gets you 3,459 newtons for Princess Peach, and the other side looks like this. Now, this looks intimidating, but it's not actually that bad. This weird-looking symbol here is rho, and it stands for air density. This one is actually really important in calculating the force of drag.
But are you sure? Are you sure the air density in the real world is similar as the air density in the Mario world? Difference, you know, it might be a different environment, different air density. For that.
Because it represents how many atoms are actually in your way and represents them specifically as kilograms per cubic meter, which is actually useful when you're calculating force since it's a mass pushing on you. This here is velocity, and it's how fast you're moving. Remember how I said that the faster you're moving, the more drag you experience because you're moving through more air. This right here is the drag coefficient, and we will get to that later, but it's basically the glue that holds everything together. And this right here is area, because the more surface area you have, the more surface there is moving through the air and pushing molecules out of the way, which in turn will increase the amount of force the air exerts on a falling object. And it's this variable right here that matters the most when it comes to how parachutes work. Parachutes are a relatively thin, relatively light sheet of fabric that you can wear that will dramatically increase your surface area. They also give you a better drag coefficient, but we'll get into that later, and it's by and large not the most important part. By creating a truly gigantic surface area compared to what is normal for a human being, you can increase your drag by an order of magnitude, and by comparison, decrease your terminal velocity, making it safe for a human being to jump out of an airplane. Ugh, I guess I have to talk about drag coefficients now. Okay, this is actually relatively simple, but it's just another complicating piece of the floating peach puzzle. Basically, what a drag coefficient is a numerical representation of how effective specific shapes are at creating drag. A lower number means lower drag per area. Parachutes have one of the best shapes, incidentally, for drag coefficients, and as a result, they don't have to be like super huge because their drag coefficient is actually really, really high. This is also why your terminal velocity while you're falling through the air depends upon what direction you're facing. If you lay flat, perpendicular to the airflow, your drag will be a lot higher than if you're falling feet first, although this probably has more to do with increasing your surface area and the direction of the airflow. And oh my god, are you seeing how this gets complicated quickly?
Wait, it gets complicated quickly, but it's still not the gist of it, you know.
Okay, so how does all of this apply to Princess Peach's ability to float? Well, for one, this formula is actually more complicated than it may first appear at a glance. We have so many unknowns to figure out before we get to what the worst part of this monster is. We have gravity, which is important for this side of the equation, and we have Peach's mass, mostly. We'll get to that. Now we've got to figure out Peach's drag coefficient and the surface area that's slowing her down, and that's mostly it. Let's start with the drag coefficient, probably the easiest part. Drag coefficients are based on shape, mostly, and they have been measured a lot by engineers over the years. We're going to use this chart and presume that Peach's dress is a hollow hemisphere because it's close enough for government work. This gives us a drag coefficient of 1.42, which is pretty good.
Pretty good, it's around there.
The highest possible, but it is up there. Now the surface area. We're gonna pretty much do just Peach's dress because it's pretty much all that matters since her body is practically speaking not slowing her down at all. And here's the part where I hope that my research into dress and skirt construction comes into play and saves me from a vicious clapback from sartorial YouTube. That's a thing, right?
YouTube comment.
I'm sure it is. Anyway, Peach's dress has a floor-length A-line skirt, which pixel-wise is about 78 centimeters long, and we'll add another 5 centimeters to be safe, bringing it to a cool 83. Since it is a floor-length skirt, this means there's most likely a full circle skirt instead of a 3/4 skirt in order to maximize mobility. What does this mean? Well, it's actually not that complicated. Skirts in their simplest forms are just circular fabric with a hole cut in them. Spread out and looked at from the top, they look like this. In geometry, this is what's known as an annulus. Anyway, here's where things get interesting. Different
Annulus.
percentages of sectors can be cut out of this skirt before it is sewn together, anywhere from 25% up to a whopping 75%. This dictates the fullness and the structure of the skirt and how it fits around the body. But for our purposes, both because it's easier and it also gives Peach the best chances of making it through this alive, we're going to presume that she has a fully circular skirt because it maximizes her surface area. We can figure out the area of this skirt and
the maximum surface area.
By extension, get much closer to figuring out her drag by figuring out how much fabric makes up her skirt. Using the area of an annulus formula, which is just subtracting two circular areas to account for the whole, and given that she has a waist measurement of 0.39 meters, this gives us an area of fabric of almost exactly 2.5 square meters. Now, using the thinnest silk satin fabric weight to minimize the contribution of weight to Peach, at 24 grams per square meter, this skirt is very thin, weighing only about 59 grams. This is not that important for now, but it will become important later on, trust me. Let's be sure to put the weight of the dress on this side of the formula to
Wow, 59 grams. Not that important right now.
To account for it, and then move on to our last part, which is, oh, right, you. You see this little velocity here? This is a killer. This punk disrupts absolutely everything and is what changes this from a simple episode with easy math that I can just plug in and get an answer to a freaking pain in my butt! Velocity in this specific context is quite the bugbear because drag changes depending upon how fast you go. For example, right here, Peach has reached the peak of her jump and is just about to start falling.
Peak of the jump start falling.
Right now, her velocity is 0, which means her drag is also 0. But her velocity is not going to remain 0 forever because she's experiencing a force from gravity. And let's fast forward a whopping frame, a singular 1/60th of a second forward in time. Assuming that the Mushroom Kingdom has an atmosphere similar to Earth's, meaning it has an air density of 1.225 kilograms
1.225 kilograms
per cubic meter.
Per cubic meter. But you must understand that this is just speculation that assuming that the Mushroom Kingdom have similar air density as on Earth, you know. But if it is not, have you thought of that? Why it is not? Gosh, sorry. So anyways, continue.
The gravity we measured before of 53.22 meters per second squared, Peach will be moving down after this short period of time at 0.69 nice meters per second, which means now that she's moving, she will finally be producing drag. Each frame she advances, we will have to calculate a whole new drag, which impacts the acceleration, which will impact her velocity for the next frame. It's not impossible, mind you, it's just a lot of work. A lot of work that I did for you, the people.
Thank you. Thank you so much. A lot of work.
So, how does Peach's dress fare once it starts moving under Mushroom Kingdom's default conditions? Well, at frame 1, moving at 0.69 nice meters per second with all the other numbers we've derived, this means she will be producing a tremendously impressive 1 Newton of drag, compared to the over 3,400 Newtons caused by the force of gravity. And it gets worse from there. Working at maximum efficiency, at Peach's top speed, she never gets close to terminal velocity here. Right before she hits the ground, moving at 15.88 meters per second, she will be producing 548 newtons of drag force. Pitiful! A normal princess A-line floor-length skirt would be entirely incapable of slowing anyone's fall down from 330 milliseconds to 1.3 seconds. It would slow you down a little bit, though. Parachuteless.
That is, oh wow, that is absolutely specific.
Peach hits the ground at 17.7 meters per second after 330 milliseconds of falling. With a parachute skirt, she hits the ground 2 meters per second slower and almost 20 milliseconds later, so it is doing something. Okay, so what if we just make the skirt bigger so it actually behaves like an actual parachute? I mean, all we have to do is make it really big and we should be fine, right? Well, yes and no.
Maybe.
You see, if we make the surface area bigger, approximately 900 square meters, which is pretty big, it's almost 20 Peaches wide, we can actually make it so when the chute opens, Peach does indeed float to the ground in about 1.3 seconds like we want. Unfortunately, this is where fabric weight actually starts to come into play. That 24 grams per square meter really adds up when you start adding zeros to your fabric area. This means our skirt, which weighed almost nothing before, now weighs over 21 kilograms, 1/3 the mass of Peach, and it really makes a dent in the left side of the formula, bringing us from 3,569 newtons of weight up to over 4,600. This added mass means we'll need more fabric, which will add more weight, which means we'll need more fabric, which means we'll add more weight, which means we'll need more fabric and we'll add more weight.
Thanks to Reboot, Austin.
Okay, while it is an infinite series problem, thankfully it is a convergent one, not a divergent one, meaning we can actually calculate how much fabric we'll need, even taking into account the added weight that fabric will produce. And
thankfully there is convergence and it's not divergence, so yay! Anyways, let's continue.
And that answer is 4,800 square meters. For comparison, a standard football field is 7,140 square meters. Fully fluffed up, this thing would be 45 Princess Peaches wide and weigh an astonishingly high 115 kilograms, or over 250 pounds. Woohoo, Lord! At these dimensions, Peach would reach terminal velocity just 67 milliseconds after starting her downward descent, and would slowly float to the ground at 1.59 meters per second until gently lighting upon the ground 1.3 seconds after beginning to fall. Of course, you're probably saying to yourself, this is ridiculous! Oh my god! And you know what? I agree with you. Thankfully, there's actually a solution to this problem that doesn't involve lugging around 250 pounds of fabric hanging around your waist. And it's actually a solution that I mentioned over 2 years ago in my Mario Flight episode, and it is this: air density. If we up the atmospheric air density, we...
See, I knew it. Assuming that the Earth density is similar to the Mushroom Kingdom density, yeah, but what if it's a different world? It's a fictional world, of course. It's a video game world, you know.
We can actually make Peach's skirt in its original dimensions work perfectly. All we gotta do is like pump way more air into the atmosphere. The higher gravity certainly helps because air density is aided by gravity. Air molecules being pulled down and pushed together by gravity, after all, is pretty much what makes air pressure to begin with. That said, Venus actually has a higher air density than Earth by over 90 times in spite of having less gravity than Earth, and this is because there's just way more gas in the air. And if we crank the air density up to 967 kilograms per cubic meter, Peach's default skirt would be able to reach terminal velocity from a short fall all on its own, without the extra fabric. Of course, for comparison purposes, this means that the air in the Mushroom Kingdom would be almost as dense as Earth's oceans. Just running through this atmosphere would be like trying to run through water, and breathing it would be like, well, it would feel a lot like breathing water. But at least Mario would be able to fly, and Peach would be able to float using nothing but her skirt. Who cares if you drown to death a little bit while trying to breathe? I mean, that's just the cost of doing business. Sincerely, Austin.
Sincerely, Austin.
Whoa, that was a long one. Sorry, Tanya. I guess that's why we have patrons like Adam Barber, Jared Beecher, Emma Sims, Francis Gagnon, Royal Gaming 16, Edadam TP, Nicholas Spillinger, Marissa Resnick, Siggy, and Mazer, who make this stupid show possible. Thanks a lot, you guys. And we'll see the rest of you later after I take like 40 naps. Holy cow.
Wow, that's a very good video. Not only to say that it's not possible, but under what condition if it's possible, right? It seems possible, but what conditions? Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. I sincerely appreciate you coming over, and I hope that you like this video as much as I do. If you do like this video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I repeat one more time: like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and comment down below if you have anything to share with us. Do remember to follow my channel as well, and I'll see you next time. But hey, that's just the signs of. Thanks for watching. Thank you. Hey, thank you so much for coming over to my live stream. Thank you so much for coming to my video. This is not take two. Let's start. 3, 2, 1, go. Thank you so much for coming over to my video. If you do like this video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to their channel and to my videos. And if you do like the videos that I just reacted to, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Watch more videos from the YouTube channel Game Theorists. This video came up from that channel back in the year 2020, which is 1 year ago. Yeah, 1 year ago, last year. And I'm a huge fan of their work, so yeah, I'm a huge fan of their work. So please do check it out. Their videos are very knowledgeable, very exciting to watch, knowledgeable, wisdom filled, just all in all, entertaining, enjoyable to watch, and I really like the video. Just educational videos. And I'll see you next time in my video. Bye!